This time we'll study time clauses. As soon as you watch the explanation, you will be asked to write some examples.
Time clauses.
Before I had my first job, I was really immature.
After I got my first job, I became more mature.
Once I had a job, I became totally independent.
The moment I moved away from home, I felt like a different person.
As soon as I got my own bank account, I started to be more responsible.
Until I graduated, I'd never had any important responsibilities.
By the time I graduated from high school, I had already started working.
Before we begin, it is important to remind you some facts about clauses. Number 1, all clauses require a subject and a verb. Number 2, a time clause is a dependent clause. It can't stand alone. It must be connected to a main clause. Number 3, the time clause can come before or after the main clause. And finally, when the time clause comes before the main clause, a comma separates the two clauses. Now let's look at the first sentence. Before I had my first job, I is the subject, had is the verb. If you read, before I had my first job, it makes no sense. It is because it can't stand alone and needs a main clause to make sense. In this sentence, the time clause comes before the main one, and because it comes first, we used a comma. Moving on, we have subordinating conjunctions. What subordinating conjunctions do? They provide a necessary transition between the two ideas in the sentence. This transition will indicate a time, place, or cause and effect. But of course, this time we will concentrate on time. Here are some examples. Once the lights came on, we all shouted with joy. After I got my first job, I became totally independent. Before we finish, we will explain the meaning of these conjunctions. Once, as soon as. When one event happens, another event happens soon afterward. The moment, a particular point of time when two events happen together. Until, to that time, and then no longer. By the time, one event is completed before another event. Now that you know about time clauses and subordinating conjunctions, we want you to tell us about a turning point in your life. You may use any from the chart.